Hey guys, Crystal Bell Comic Book University and Spotlight on Story, Among Us, The Inhumans. Now the way that I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to go from the first appearance of Medusa, all right, all the way until that actual story, a little bit beyond the story. So I'll be going from Fantastic Four number 36 all the way up to Fantastic Four issue number, what is that, 50? No, 47. All the way up to 47, which is the first appearance of the Silver Surfer as well, because the Inhuman story technically leads into the first appearance of Silver Surfer and Galactus. Here's the really cool part, is there are a couple pieces in here that don't actually involve the Inhumans or Medusa specifically. Therefore, I'm going to be glossing over those. All right, I'm going to mention them, but I'm going to be glossing over them. There's a cool Daredevil and Doctor Doom thing there, so there's that. Let's get right into this, guys. Basically, the formation of the Frightful Four. All right, that was the Wizard. At the time was the Wingless Wizard, the Trapster, who was at the time called Paste Pot Pete, the Sandman, and Madame Medusa, who would eventually become Queen Medusa of the Inhumans. All right, now, very cool story. If you don't know how this works, it's actually kind of cool. So check this out. Way back in Strange Tales, yeah, I'm starting off way back in Strange Tales, issue number 118. That publication actually became really famous. It was just one of those typical monster magazines where they'd have like four parts of the comic devoted to four different stories, short stories, where, you know, a human or a bunch of humans has to defeat some mega monster threat, you know, and there would also sometimes be like a 2-page fully written story with no illustrations whatsoever. Anyway, eventually the Human Torch would be thrown into there also, so he would take up like half of the book, and then there would be 2 short monster stories to go with it. The Human Torch was more popular than the Thing, therefore more popular than all the other characters at the time. He really resonated with the kids. Eventually the Thing would become more popular, supersede him in popularity, but there's a big thing with that, not worth getting into right now. But in Strange Tales number 118, this was when Doctor Strange had already started showing up in the comics. In fact, it's kind of cool. This is actually the one issue, if you guys remember this, that Dormammu was already mentioned in the first appearance of Doctor Strange, but and we didn't see him until much later. But this one time he invoked, or excuse me, I should say Dormammu was invoked, but he was invoked as Mormammu by accident. There was a sick error there. So just a little tidbit there. So this is number 118 of Strange Tales. The Wizard was fighting the Human Torch at the time. He didn't have his costume. It was just, you know, a green suit with a little lapel and all that stuff. It was all white. Anyway, his anti-gravity disc that allowed him to fly malfunctioned, and he just started floating up. Now, his actual flight is not any faster or slower than the Human Torch's, but when you're talking about just pure anti-grav, you're talking about eliminating gravity around you. Therefore, he immediately, boom, starts flying up at a really accelerated speed. And the Human Torch would eventually learn how to fly much faster, but at this time, he was not a very fast flyer. So, yeah, he couldn't catch up with them. He's just like, wow, I guess I'll float up and just disappear forever. And comics were a lot more innocent back then. They never really thought about the monsters actually doing real violence and things like that. You're talking about over in, like, Eerie Comics. That's where they started doing that really crazy stuff. But here, realistically, just a lot more innocent than anything else. So they never thought about him floating up into actual space and suffocating. So plus it's Johnny Storm. He's a little ignoramus. So okay, at this point, what do you call it? Paste Pot Pete and the Sandman had escaped a prison, and there was a low flying plane, like a crop duster. Yes, an actual airplane, not a jet. He used his paste gun and boom, caught hold of this plane. Pulled it down with the help of Sandman, or they climbed up on it, whatever it is. I think they forced it to land. They didn't really go into detail, and they took over. They got rid of the pilot. He was left there, so they were flying off, and they were going to escape that way. Fortunately, Facepot Pete said, oh yeah, next to this prison, I fortunately stashed one of my paste guns. Well, good for you, man. Lucky you, the power of plot. So anyway, as they're flying away, they see the Wizard flying up. Like, what's up with this? So they rescue him. And it's like, wow, man, you were almost into the upper stratosphere where, you know, you wouldn't have been able to breathe. So he's like, you saved my life, and because of that, I'll reward you with more than money. I'll actually become your leader, and we'll form a team that will destroy the Fantastic Four. I'd actually been okay with the money, personally. So they actually voiced the exact same opinion. So anyway, the wizard decides that he's going to remake his own costume. He's going to actually make a full costume, and he has a bunch of anti-gravity discs up in his helmet, and it's sealed off, so he can open them and they'll pop out. You can eventually do it electronically and fire them at people, but that's the reason why his helmet is so big. All the circuitry is up there, plus he has a whole bunch of extra anti-gravity discs, plus the one he keeps on him naturally so that he can fly also. A couple other little weapons, whatever. That's when he does the all purple and a little bit of pink. It's a 4-color palette system, man. What are you going to do back then? The pixelated, you saw all the dot formation, dot matrix. So he changes his name to the Wingless Wizard, since he can fly without wings. So would Human Torch be the wingless Human Torch then? Anyway, for a while there, he's called the Wingless Wizard. It didn't stick for particularly long. And they're like, well, we need somebody to, we got 3 guys, but what about Susan Storm? She's very powerful. Now, at first she wasn't. She could just turn invisible, but pretty soon they started dressing past the 4th wall. Yes, they did that, and started giving her a lot more power, specifically the telekinetic ability to make invisible force fields. Like, that's where her power actually came from. We could talk into great detail later how she's actually an amazing mentalist, but it just never really developed that far yet. But in the meantime, yes, she started becoming a lot more powerful. And by doing this, she became a genuine threat, not just somebody who would, turn invisible, sneak up on people and untie their ropes or hit somebody over the back of the head with a potted plant or something, She actually became a threat at this point. Excuse me. So I think that was around issue number 17, if I'm remembering correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Google it. So they say, we need this, we need a girl to counteract her. Says, I've got this girl. I know this one girl, all right? I found this one girl, and she is amazing, all right? Like, she actually has some serious abilities, this girl. She's crazy. She might be more powerful than Invisible Woman. Like, what? So they build it up. Turns out on this island, there's this French Foreign Legion, I guess. They're not actually the Foreign Legionnaires, but they're French. And they're trying to attack this girl, and she's hiding in a cave. Her hair shoots out the cave. Yes, it's Madame Medusa, and starts beating these people up, and she's wrecking the whole house with these people, all right, wiping the floor with them. And that's when they're like, okay, she's amazing. So they, the Wingless Wizard gives her a costume, looks just like his. Pastepot Pete gives himself a costume also. Sandman, instead of being the typical, whatever color his pants usually were, plus the 2 different shades of green shirt that he'd have when he was in Spider-Man, over here, it's just 2 different shades of purple, plus purple pants. So they're all wearing similar, costumes with an off pink and purple. And she says, how come he's not wearing a costume? It's like, oh, baby, when you see what I could do. Yeah, with your machismo. Turns out later on, he can't actually change his uniform. It became a part of him. So it's either that or he just goes naked. Anyway, so this all being the case, they form up a little party. Now, there's going to be an engagement party for Sue and Reed, because they're about to get married here pretty soon. And the X-Men show up, and they have to pretend that they don't know Professor X, because secret identities, you know what I'm saying? Professor X doesn't wear a costume, therefore. The Avengers are there also. Thor is talking about, it's very rare for an Asgardian to be jealous, but man, you got a fine-looking woman there, and yeah. It's not actually what he says, but he does say something very similar to that. Rick Jones is there. You wouldn't know it's him. unless you're really thinking about it and actually looking at the design and whatnot of how he looked back then. But it's Rick Jones, and he's like, oh man, it's a shame that that Bruce Banner can't be here. But Rick Jones actually goes way back in the Fantastic Four comics, all the comics. Spider-Man is there, actually more specifically his glove and one of his webs. Just his hand kind of pops in a window, and he webs a piece of cake, and he steals it. He's like, well, if they want to know where to find me, I'm sure they would have invited me, so I'll just grab this piece of cake really quick. Just that was great. That was great. So anyway, there's a fight. He goes. Spider-Man goes and leaves really quick because he sees a ship coming in. It's like, ooh, more guests, and I don't want to be caught here, so he leaves. Turns out that these guests that show up are actually the Frightful Four. That's the team I was just mentioning. So they land on the roof and they prepare themselves for 45 minutes. They give a chance for all the other guests to leave. Now, Ben decides to take a nap, and Madame Medusa and Pastepot Pete take him out in his sleep. All right? He's laying there. She reaches in with her hair, closes his eyelids a little bit more, and then reaches over and turns off the light. And he's just like, wait, what's going on? Pastepot Pete shoots his wrists together with the paste gun, and he can't move now, and glues his mouth so he can't scream out. And they just jump. They come in and they just pounce him, and he's just like laying there. Oh. Actually, sleep gas. The wingless wizard has a canister of sleep gas with him and just knocks him out. Susan Storm comes running in. She's still the Invisible Girl at the time, not the Invisible Woman. She and Mr. Fantastic come in, but they wind up eventually getting dropped. Reed Richards actually does surprisingly well. You'd think that, he just turns into rubber. He's a big freaking elastic band. At the time, he was a really powerful member of the Fantastic Four, Not anymore. Now he's not. Now he's God, basically, but whatever. He was just a whatever guy, but he was actually really powerful. He started taking these guys down, but the four of them against, one and a half of them, like Sue wasn't really doing enough. She got taken down, whatever. They both got knocked out, the sleep gas and everything. Alicia Masters, that's the Thing's girlfriend at the time. She, I wonder if they're going to make a figure of her, one of those 6-inch figures that I got on the wall. Now, I would get that, but I would want her with the puppet master, her uncle. Just saying. She comes along and she tries to help out the best she can. She goes through a secret panel. Perfect. They're all situated perfectly. And she reaches out and grabs Susan Storm's belt buckles. That's where she keeps her little flare gun. The Human Torch could actually just go in the form of the Fantastic Four emergency signal, but everybody else had to carry the flare gun on them. So she grabbed the flare gun and shot out the window. What's his name? Human Torch is down there checking out some hot rod that somebody else had built. Talking about, let me get mine. We'll see what's up. And they all see the warning symbol. So he leaves really quick. And he goes back. Now he flies in immediately and grabs the wingless wizard, throws him into his anti-grav plane, and starts beating up on him and says, you better fly this thing. You better go and let's go rescue my friends right now. After what you did. Whole bunch of crazy stuff happens. A big fight happens, and the Frightful Four actually have to blow up their plane in order to get away. Yeah. But it works. It works. They blow up their plane because they're fighting on the ground and whatnot. They blow up their plane and they're able to escape in the havoc. Issue number 37 doesn't involve them. It's the Skrulls coming back, and this just shows that the Skrulls have been they first appeared in Fantastic Four issue number 2, if I remember correctly. Before Dr. Doom even showed up. Go figure. They this issue really kind of establishes that they've never left and that they're always around. They're always going to be around. They're always looking. They're always watching, and they're getting ready to kick some serious butt. In fact, in the last issue I'm going to talk about here, which is 37, not 37, it can't be 37. I'm on 37 now. 47, issue number 47. When they see the Silver Surfer, the Skrulls are out there in space and they're still just hanging around, and they look and like, oh crap, it's Silver Surfer, we need to get out of here, because not far behind him is always Galactus. That's when you get the feeling like, wow, this is bad. And by get out, they mean black out. So they go into like Klingon warp cloak mentality. Anyway, so 37 is just the Skrulls, whatever. Issue number 38, they have giant-sized pictures of what the Skrull technology looked like. That was cute. But Pastepot Pete decides that he's going to become the Trapster, and much better name, right or wrong, all right? Take a vote down below. Pastepot Pete decides to change his name to the Trapster. He'll be taken a lot more serious, plus he gets a bunch of little traps around him, some of them that actually involve his paste gun, others that don't. So there's that. Medusa gets a new costume. It's not that new. It looks a lot like her current costume, except covers her face, not her mouth. So I forget what you call that. Is it like the domino or the half mask, whatever it's called? Whatever. And more than just a ponytail is exposed at this point. So there are a lot of internal struggles here, and basically it seems as though Medusa's kind of coming out as a little bit more powerful. She was already powerful, but more than that, actually being in charge. Now, mind you, I'm going to get into this a lot later, but Jack Kirby didn't really know what he was doing. Not that actually came out wrong. Of course, he always knew what he was doing. He didn't know where he was going with this. So he just wanted to give a little bit of empowerment to a female, whatever. He didn't know he was going to wind up making her a queen at this point. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, Medusa goes and disguises herself as a fashion designer for Sue's wedding, and she catches Sue Storm in that regard. So she's caught up. She can't move, whatever. She's taken out, and she actually gets taken away, kidnapped. That's the word I'm looking for. Here we go. Reed Richards, the Fantastic Four go searching for, but more specifically Reed, he makes a trans-hemispheric video network. Really easy words to pronounce, but when you put them together, they just don't make sense. And yeah, I guess like a way of tapping into all the closed caption, closed circuit communications in like London and things like that, but a trans-hemispheric video network. Shut up, Reed. That stuff just doesn't exist. Anyway, and he can't find her anywhere. So the wingless wizard makes modifications on a Q bomb. Like there's the A bomb, the H bomb, so he makes a Q bomb. Shut up, man. That stuff doesn't exist either. You're just taking letters from the alphabet. You know, saying pretty soon we've done all 26 kinds of bombs. Let's make an SH bomb. Yeah, SH as in shut up. It doesn't exist. Guys, kids, don't get your science knowledge. Don't learn chemistry and physics from comic books. Just don't. Especially not the old Fantastic Four ones. So anyway, Trapster has this one particular when they go after them finally. Trapster has this one particular trap called asbestos tape. Let me tell you something. By this point, all the different little asbestos, it's like, you know, people using DDT on Ant-Man way back in the day, you know. We know this stuff causes cancer now, all right? We also know that asbestos causes cancer. Almost every single issue, you'd have somebody with some kind of an asbestos device to snuff out the plasmic flames of Human Torch. Man, that kid has got to have cancer like you would not believe. Like, that dude should be going through some serious chemo at this point, all right? Just all the times people have used asbestos on him. That wouldn't be such a bad story, I'm just saying, you know? He could share a hospital bed with Jane Foster. Just, cancer sucks, and please support local cancer research. Moving on. Here's more freaking science from the Fantastic Four. They use suction blasts. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I'm going to shoot suction at you, and that's able to deflame him because eventually he gets out. You know, Reed helps him to get out. So they shoot suction at him. It shoots and it sucks, and like, does it go back in the gun? Does it only have one charge? I don't get it. Anyway, the effing bomb eventually detonates on the FF. The effing FF. It's all good stuff. I don't mean to be making fun of it. I am looking back at it, you know, lightly though, because it can get fun. But yeah, they're fighting on some other land at this point, and it gets to the point where they detonate the Q bomb. And what the Q bomb does is, one, it defeats the Fantastic Four. The Frightful Four got away, and mind you, between this and their last battle, the Frightful Four were the first team to ever actually get a sounding defeat on the Fantastic Four. They'd never been defeated in 35 comics. They'd never actually been defeated before. And here we got two very real victories. These guys lost. And on top of this, they could have been picked off. If they would have realized what had happened, they could have just easily picked them off at this point, you know? But yeah, they lost their powers after the detonation of this Q bomb. So now the next two issues, 39 and 40, they don't actually have anything to do with the Frightful Four. Instead, let's just try and blow through this as quickly as possible. Daredevil shows up because the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards is trying to show that, no, we haven't lost our powers. Until I can figure out how to regain our powers, we've got to pretend that we've got our powers. So he makes for himself a device, what do you call it, robotics that are extended. I know you've seen in the toy stores, those old things, you pull them and then the hand like grapples something. You can find the right hand, the left hand, it can go into a fist and it can grapple things. Or it's a little octopus tendril and you get two of them and you're like, man, I wish I had two more arms so I can act like Dr. Octopus. If you had two more arms, you would be Dr. Octopus, I'm just saying. Anyway, so yeah, just basically those, but much longer and with elbow joints to boot. And he's trying to mix chemicals and show that he can still do the things that he does. And he's going to try and disguise them somehow. Invisible Woman, he makes like some kind of a low projector so it appears as though she's invisible, but it's not working that well. He makes a suit that can flame on for the Human Torch, but Torch has to get used to the idea of maneuvering inside this thing. And the thing, he actually makes a robot that he's controlled instead of like a virtual reality type thing, which granted, that's a little extended for way back in the day. That's a bit far-fetched, but they could have made something like a Nintendo Wii. I mean, that doesn't seem too difficult for me. Instead, it's just this big, gigantic CB, like portable ham radio thing, gigantic like this, bigger than those old 80s portable phones. And he's just all like, remember Wall Street? And he's got to try and operate the thing like that with cranks and dials and buttons and whirlies and gears and widgets galore, man. And he's not doing such a great job with it. Nobody's really doing such a great job, but they got to practice because Reed is beating the heck out of them, verbally. Do it. You idiots, we have to. Our enemies will defeat us if we don't have our powers, so we have to act like we still have our powers. Reed, Ben, you still have to act like you got your Ben Grimm voice when you're talking into the machine. Like, come on, man, this is a bit much. It's a bit much. So anyway, they bring in their lawyer, Matt Murdock, and this goes back to like issue number 2 of Daredevil. They bring in Matt Murdock as their lawyer. Like, listen, if something happens to us, you got power of attorney. You make sure that all of my inventions go to the government. You remember back in the day when we can actually trust our government? It's been so long for me. I can't remember a day like that. Anyway, yeah, so eventually, all the crazy stuff that winds up happening, Daredevil essentially helps to, Dr. Doom was hypnotized. This is in issue number 35, so like the issue before we actually started on this, issue number 35. There was a Reed Richards versus Dr. Doom thing, and Reed hypnotized Doom into thinking that he defeated Reed, so he wound up leaving. And he's like, satisfied, I never have to worry about these guys again. Like, nobody has a freaking TV in Latveria, So, anyway, there's some silly little magician who's, performing for Dr. Doom, and all of a sudden he realizes, hey, wait a second, something like this happened? I didn't defeat Reed Richards. The embarrassment, how dare he? So, his pride, and he decides to go and attack the Fantastic Four. If he would have just gone directly, everybody'd be dead. Okay, but he doesn't. Instead, he gets in his device, he starts shooting guns out at them and whatnot. So Matt turns into Daredevil, and he tries to help out over the course of 2 issues. Again, that's issue number 39 and 40. And it's actually pretty good because he's leading the team. Because Daredevil, with his radar sense, he's able to realize that these guys don't really have their powers. They're using machines and gadgets to do what they're doing. So, and nobody understands why he knows this, but he knows. So they take his lead, and he's guiding them and helping them to survive. And seeing him go up against Dr. Doom, like, he doesn't stand a freaking chance. But it was cool, him trying to. Eventually, Reed has this device that needed to charge for a couple days. He didn't tell anybody. But now that it's fully charged over this past couple of days, he can now shoot Ben Grimm, and boom, he's got his powers back. And he eventually shoots everybody, and they all get their powers back. And this is just one of those weird science things. If you're able to give people their powers back, can't you simply reverse design this thing so that you could take the powers away so that Ben doesn't have to be the thing anymore? Logic, go figure. Anyway, so yeah, in issue 41, by the end of that issue, the Thing and Dr. Doom go at it with each other, and Doom is badass, man. But eventually the Thing does win. He actually crushes Doom's hands. This was not a Doom bot. Because you do see in later-ish, several issues later, that Doom is still trying to, see if his hands have healed after the beating that Dr. Doom took at the hands of Ben Grimm, the Thing. So, like he's calling his surgeon adult. Anyway, eventually he realized that he knows magic, and that's why his hands were so crucial, besides inventing things. Anyway, hands are important. Faces obviously aren't to Dr. Doom. So, by the end, Ben Grimm is just like, you guys have used me. You especially, Reed, but all of you guys have used me, and I'm so pissed off at you guys at this point because, once again, I got to do the dirty work. And you know what? You get to get married, but I don't. And like, Ben, man. Like, Ben, yes, he is a monster. This monster, right? Ben is a monster, but he never understood that he is still loved, And the closest he ever got to actual love was with Sharon Ventura, go figure, the she thing, because she wound up looking eventually just like him. And just, what a absolute tragic, story, this guy's psychosis. It's such a shame. Love to get into his psychology one of these days. Yeah, can I explain him in only a minute? Not if we're talking about his psyche. So anyway, he leaves, beats up the Fantastic Four as he's leaving because they're trying to stop him. And he goes and he basically hobos his way into the back of a pickup truck. Hoboing is actually supposed to be in the back of a train, one of the empty carts of a train, but whatever. He's essentially hoboing here in the back of a pickup truck. This thing leads out of town. Nobody notices that this big, 500 some odd pound rock creature made of bright orange rocks is in the back of the freaking pickup truck. Man, this thing must have had shocks like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, so they wind up leaving out of town, and they hit, I don't know, some kind of bump, and the thing falls out of the back. Now, when he falls out, and all of a sudden, anti-gravity, he's picked up and brought into this old spooky haunted mansion where the Scooby-Doo crew is. Not really, but maybe. You never know. But the Frightful Four clearly is in there. And now the power struggle is real. Like, Medusa's not joking around. Like, she's laying there like she's Queen Bee. She's got the fruit and a big, golden chalice and all that stuff. And her hair's skinning apples, I guess, for, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, she actually beats up all of the members just to prove that she's boss. Like, beating up the other guys is nothing, but, like, she actually grabs Sandman, and Sandman's like, what? He turns to sand and, like, goes after her. And she's like, I was waiting for you to do that. And she starts spinning her hair like a fan, a jet turbine fan. That's how fast the hair is going. And check out my Medusa Explained in a minute. Yes, it's fully psychokinetically controlled. Therefore, yes, she absolutely can make it go that fast. She, forget about it, man. She blows him away. He's just scattered. Now, she could have continued doing more damage, but she chose not to. And, like, Sandman's all sorts of mad at her, but eventually he realized, like, she's a tough dame, and he likes that. And he's chomping on a cigar the entire time, but they start playing cards. I forget what she's doing exactly, but she's doing something on the side while her hair is shuffling cards and picking out cards and putting them in order. Like, the manual dexterity is amazing. So eventually what happens is they decide to use the thing rather than just kill him. They decide to use him, and they use the ID machine that the wizard has created at this point. What it basically does is it goes in and it increases his aggression, and he can even be focused. So less focus of aggression is taken away from the Frightful Four and is added to the Fantastic Four. So he's really mad at them. So now they become the Frightful Five, and the Fantastic Three are really outnumbered at this point, especially with the Thing on their side. I mean, he's just he's a brick powerhouse. So, what happens here? Medusa takes over. Her queenly lines are coming out. Now, at this point, I think that maybe Jack Kirby's starting to realize that he wants to do more with her, because she really is, drawn amazingly even for way back when, and she is written really well. She's written very well. While the other guys are just bumbling all over the place, she's a lot more serious about the things that she does, and she's pointing out that she is, really smart. She knows what she's doing and whatever. They go and they are able to beat the crap out of the Fantastic Four. Like, they just don't stand a chance. It actually went really fast, frighteningly fast. So this is yet another defeat. I believe their third, second and a half at least, but their third defeat of the Fantastic Four. Sick, right? So the first three people to defeat the Fantastic Four was the Frightful Four. Anyway, at one point she's thinking about Madame Medusa is thinking about killing Reed because he's Paste Pot Pete Trapster pasted a board like a gurney and put Reed on it. Sandman actually like pressed his body into it, so he's not getting out anytime soon. And he was unconscious at the time, so by the time he wakes up, it's solidified, so he's not going anywhere. And they're talking about, let's kill this guy. And Medusa's like, yeah, I should kill him. She's like, but he's just so handsome. It's like, man, you were doing so good. You were doing so good with the character, and then you pull this nonsense. Whatever. So and then later on, she's looking in a mirror. I'm so pretty. Just stop with this girly crap, man. Come on. So, eventually, at one point, Wingless Wizard shows that he's able to just say the word sleep, even in the middle of a sentence, and right away, the thing will fall asleep. It's like a safety. He's only programmed to listen to the wizard, so there's that. But Medusa is very influential in the things that she says, and the wizard actually starts listening to her for the most part. He's still got an ego, but it's no match for her. Like, I guess her charisma, like she's on spot. She's on point with everything she's saying and doing. So the Human Torch comes back, and he's supposed to be able to, take these guys out, but Madame Medusa herself actually takes him out. She's, she actually goes and she douses her hair with water. She's standing on the side of a door frame, and she sneaks her hair over and turns on a faucet and douses her hair with water. I hope she turns it off to conserve, because I'm just saying. But anyway, comes back and wraps it around Johnny Storm, and his fire just goes out. He's doused. He's done. At least asbestos wasn't used, thank God. But they try to use the ID machine on him too. Now, this stuff is happening in issue number 42. Now, by the time issue 43 comes along, you come to realize that if you didn't already know, if you didn't already guess by some of his actions, that the ID machine didn't work. Okay, it wound up malfunctioning after it worked on the thing. It wound up malfunctioning, so. Human Torch was just faking it. He actually tries to burn Medusa's hair. It doesn't work. They show this because it got pulled away, but we'll see that her hair actually is very resilient to fire and all sorts of other things too. It's not like normal people's hair. It's an inhuman hair. So Medusa sneaks the Trapster's paste gun. Should I pull it out? Because at this point, Trapster and Sandman don't realize what's going on, but Medusa and Wizard do. They go and they realize that the machine was broken. So Johnny Storm is not really under their control. Meanwhile, the thing is this entire time the thing is just battling one on two against the Storm. The Richards married couple. Wait, were they married by this point? Actually, yeah, they did get married at some point. Shoot, where did I know I put that in here. Where did I actually put that? At one point, the Fantastic Four annual number 3 had happened. And I think that they were married by this point. Whatever. Anyway. Go figure. That actually kind of bugs me a little bit. I would like to know. I would like to be able to note when this happened. But anyway, they do eventually get married. So Susan Storm and Reed Richards are fighting against the Thing, and they're not doing such a great job. But eventually, through Reed's quick thinking, it works. And they're able to work out some stuff and get him unhooked to the ID machine. So the ID machine's results. So he winds up joining their side again. The correct side. Bunch of different things start happening. Bunch of different things. Anyways, like I said, they come out and they're like, okay, so is he actually, the Human Torch, is he actually under the control of us, or did the machine not work on him? Like, no, let's not even talk about that. No, like, he's perfectly fine. He's perfectly fine. So Trapster's like, all right, fine. Because they knew, Madame Medusa at least knew, if he pulls out his gun, he's going to torch up, or he's going to flame on really quick, and then they're going to be in a lot of trouble, because he is ridiculously powerful. He's OP, all right? But what happens instead is, Madame Medusa's like, no, everything's fine. And then she reaches around with her hair and pulls out his gun, unholsters his gun, and shoots the torch. So, yeah. But he is able to burn out of it before it hardens. It's much like Spider-Man's web fluid. It's very hard, but it solidifies even harder after 5 or 6 seconds. It solidifies much harder. And then after an hour or 3, it'll disappear entirely. It'll just dissolve completely. But almost the exact same thing with the paste gun. They're both very similar devices, the web shooters and the paste gun. We see a bunch more of the things that Medusa could do. She's climbing across machinery with just her hair, and her feet are dangling off the ground. So it's like she can, operate monkey bars, you know what I'm saying, with just her hair. The thing winds up turning the tables, and the Frightful Four weren't expecting that to happen. So they really did get caught by surprise. Medusa winds up escaping out the window while the Fantastic Four are trampling the Frightful Four guys. Medusa escapes, and the Invisible Woman, Invisible Girl at the time, Susan Storm, she tries to capture her with a force field. Johnny jumps in front of her, blocks her view, says, "No, I'll get her." But then he's like, "Oh my God, but she's just so hot," and she winds up escaping in the anti-grav spaceship. He's OP, but it's totally counteracted by the fact that he's just dumb. He's just so young and so stupid. But she's so hot. Oh my God, dude, get a girlfriend. get a blow up doll if you need to. Whatever, man. Just don't turn on the heat when you do that. But anyway, so yeah. Now by issue number 44 of the Fantastic Four, all right, Human Torch is taking a nap, and everybody's doing whatever. He's trying to take a nap, and I think this is by now that they actually got married. Yes. Oh, actually, bang! I knew I wrote it down. So in between issue number 43 and 44, that's when Fantastic Four Annual number 3 showed up, and that was a huge, super huge deal at the time. The wedding of Reed Richards and Sue Storm. It was a huge deal. All right. I'm gonna have to just actually do that video by itself, that spotlight and story all by itself one of these days. Seriously, it was gigantic. Just to give you the idea of the fanfare that was involved in that. That the only reason why they actually married Spider-Man and Mary Jane was actually because they want to try and relive, what the spectacular that was. But anyway, so he's trying to catch a nap while Reed is spending half the day trying to work different appliances in the house because, of course, since he's married Susan Storm, forget that she's eventually going to become the most powerful member of the team. She technically is already, technically. She's got to have appliances to do the housework for, right? So she's pulling some serious double duty, triple duty, It'll increase more once she starts having kids. So... oh man, forget about it. Anyway, so what do you call it? Actually, Reed Richards invents the very first automated dishwasher. Yeah, I said it. It happened. Before there actually were automated dishwashers, he invents it. So anyways, he's trying to take a nap. The thing winds up waking him up. That's enough to, I guess he's like one of those grumpy sleepers. It's enough to tick him off enough that he storms out. Johnny Storm storms out of the Baxter building. And he goes down into his Corvette Stingray race car. They don't say it's a Stingray, but it looks just like a Corvette Stingray. But they do say it's a Corvette. Anyway, so he's flying off. And all of a sudden, there's this small earthquake. It's like, hey, what's going on? And then, what's her name? Medusa appears in the back seat. She's like, aha, I've got a suction gun on you. I can't. Can't keep a straight face for this, man. So anyways, yeah. She's got basically it's a vacuum gun, and so which means it's gonna suck him. Okay, I'm not even editing that stuff out. Okay, so she's got this vacuum gun on him. And she will vacuum his ass if he tries to flame up. So anyway, she's trying to get away from Gorgon. That's the guy making these earthquakes. Gorgon explained in a minute. Go check it out, baby. So anyway, Gorgon winds up climbing to the top of the Baxter building, and he climbs the top of it from the outside because he's actually kicking his feet into the wall, like so hard that it's actually going through the reinforced concrete of the Fantastic Four building. So like the whole place is starting to collapse in on itself a little bit. Just, some of the rooms on the side where he's at, he's not actually trying to bring down the building, but like you actually see the feet come through the building and things just like, what the frig? So he climbs to the top and he steals a helicopter. Wow. Anyway, so he starts chasing after them. Now, these guys go and touch down on the Torch and Medusa. They touch down on State U. It's not... It looks like an island. It's not described as an island, though. But this is just basically this area where they fought the Dragon Man not too many issues prior. Anyway, so the Dragon Man is still there. So he pops up and he fell in love with... it's like a King Kong story. He's in love with Susan Storm, but he sees Medusa. And whatever, man, blonde, redhead, they all look the same to me. So he winds up trying to protect her. He puts a good beating on the Human Torch, go figure, and Gorgon shows up. And Gorgon's tough, but he's not quite Dragon Man tough, not in that regard. So he's like, holy crap. So Medusa winds up getting away in the car. She carjacks the Human Torch. She starts driving back to New York City. So, back to the Baxter building. So Gorgon gets in the helicopter and chases her. The Dragon Man starts chasing. Human Torch wakes up and he starts chasing. These guys are flying all over the freaking city. Like, come on, guys. Get a grip. So they fly back to, what do you call it? Reed Richards is leaning outside the Baxter building. He's like, what do I see all the way over there? I'm going to go check it out. So with his feet still in, he stretches all the way across several streets, and all of a sudden Ben Grimm, the Thing, he's like, hey, what's going on? He's being pulled. So he grabs him, but he's not strong enough to anchor him, but he is strong enough to hold on. He's like, Susie, hold on. So Susan Storm holds on to Ben Grimm's legs. So this is a lot like how I have to bring my kids to sleep at night, dragging them while they're kicking and screaming across the floor. Actually, they love it. I put a blanket down. They lay down on the blanket, and I pull the blanket in, like, hey, we're going to bed. Then they realize they're in bed. It's like, oh, crap, we hate this place. Naps, the bane of children. Anyway, so, excuse me. So, anyway, these knuckleheads, they get pulled over because Dragon Man captures Reed. Now, he's stretched out beyond his almost to beyond his limits, and he gets pummeled, and he's laying there unconscious. So he's out of the picture. So Ben and Torch winds up showing up also, and Susan Storm is there, and there's Medusa hiding behind a brick jut on this roof of this other apartment building. And they're like, no, he's coming. Who? Gorgon. What? Gorgon shows up. Dragon Man shows up. Everybody shows up. They wind up putting the Dragon Man down eventually. Gorgon's just like, all right, listen, man, she's coming with me, and I'll explain. She's a member of my race. Now, Reed Richards wakes up by this time. He's like, ooh, I'm very interested in this. Things like, get out of here, Stretch. I'm going to kick this guy's butt. And the Human Torch jumps in, and then the Thing jumps in, and Gorgon's like, oh, yeah? Well, and he kicks them, and they're like, they're getting all jacked up. Like, dude, Gorgon is a lot tougher than the Thing. And that's just... He's a lot tougher than the Thing, all right? Yeah, so there's that. To prove a point, now that they wouldn't let him talk, Gorgon, he's not that smart, all right? Just every single time, I always wondered, like, oh, we're going to send Gorgon as a representative. Why would you do that? He's dumb as a brick, and he's going to get into a fight, all right? Look at Silent War. Oh, my God. Anyway, so... Yeah, they say, okay, wait, okay, fine, we're ready to listen to you now. He's like, oh, you want to listen? Listen to this. He stomps his foot. He sends a shockwave in a way that it does affect the building a little bit, but not enough. Instead, it makes it so that the shockwave just simply goes to an epicenter around the building, and then boom, it sends out, and the whole city is shaking. All right? So the whole city gets shook, and everybody's like, holy crap. He's like, yeah, that was just the warning shot. And he lifts up his foot. The next time that I stomp, I'm going to take this entire city down. So I want you to understand, I'm taking Medusa, and you're not going to do anything about it. And you don't even get an explanation at this point. So they're like, okay. Because they know. They're like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do at this point? Anyway, he does wind up hitting the building, and it collapses. So now, issue number 45, and this is the one that everybody, like, it's one of the coolest names ever. Among Us Hide the Inhumans. This is that one. This is that issue. They're dealing with the Dragon Man who wakes back up at this point. Johnny, they're able to do that, but Johnny winds up leaving at one point. He's just got to go out for a walk, and he winds up meeting Crystal, all right? Medusa's sister. We don't know this at the time. She's not even wearing her typical yellow jumpsuit. It's just this white evening gown, this negligee, and just like, so now all of a sudden he falls in love with her. He doesn't know anything about this girl, but she's like, she's so dreamy. Oh my God. I just want to punch his plasma face so bad. Just shut up, you freaking idiot. Grow up. Anyway. So he winds up falling in love with her. She winds up sending this gust of wind that freaks him out and leaves. They're all off doing their own thing, whatever. And later on, he winds up meeting her again, and this time she like sets something on fire to get away. Go and check out my Crystal Explained in a minute to understand all of her powers. So anyway, he absorbs that flame and then flames on, and she's like, oh wait, you're one of us. Hey, come on, Lockjaw's gonna bring us home. Lockjaw, what? Oh my God, there's this giant muscular bulldog with a tuning fork on his head. Actually, at the time it was just 2 antennae, but it eventually became a tuning fork, much like what's his face? Black Bolt. Blackagar Boltagun. You will see my Black Bolt Explained in a minute, probably a week from now. Anyway, so that being the case, they wind up going off to some distant location. Now, at this point, the rest of the Fantastic Four, because he winds up meeting the Inhumans at this point. There's Karnak, he judo flips him, and then Gorgon and Medusa show up like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, the jig is up. So he does his thing and summons the Fantastic Four. They show up quicker than lightning, go figure, on just some of the most ridiculous freaking devices ever. Like at one point, like even Stan Lee's writing this stuff after Jack Kirby already drew it. You know the devices that the New Gods fly on, like Orion, right? This is where he started really getting into all that stuff, way back here. And it's just this, I forget what they even called this. It's not the Pogo Plane, it's not the Fantastic Car, some other device. There's so many names for these things. Like, you don't need that many different names, all right? Or the flying bathtub. It wasn't the flying bathtub. You don't need these many different devices to fly on. You just need one, and you can have a backup in case that one gets destroyed. You don't need, like, well, there's this one, and this one, and this one. Shut up, dude. You don't need all those. Come on. So he just, I think that what it is, he was drawing so many comics that he just didn't want to keep remembering how all these were done. So he's just like, I'll just draw something else and give it a new name. Whatever. That's Stan's job. Stan actually had in the bottom where everybody's like, look up in the sky. They're doing that whole "it's a bird, it's a plane" thing, but with other words. Like, whatever the heck it is, it's unrealistic. Oh man, the way these two used to fight once in a while is freaking hysterical. Anyway, don't hate on Stan or Jack. They were both amazing. They were both absolutely amazing. And people fight. Don't take mom or dad's side. It's just whatever. Anyway, so eventually Black Bolt shows up to fight these, because like they're actually doing pretty good against the Inhumans. But Black Bolt shows up and he goes one-on-one with the Thing, and just, yeah, they're pretty evenly matched. But the Thing is, he's even saying things like, dude, this guy, like, he's beating me up. And he does his master attack, some super ninja attack, death punch thing. But at this point, you'll see the way that Black Bolt's powers work eventually, absorbing not electrons, but the energy of electrons, the energy that they generate around him, which is essentially infinite, infinite energy. But it takes a couple of minutes for him to absorb enough to be at full power when he chooses to. But one of the things he can do with it is to increase his speed and his strength astronomically, so that he can actually go one-on-one with the Hulk. He's done that before. So the Thing isn't much more of a match, and he's not expecting this skinny little guy to beat the living crap out of him, but he's doing it. And anyway, all sorts of crazy things like this are happening. What do you call it? Reed, just by looking, he's able to figure out, oh, that tuning fork on his head. He's actually gathering the electrons around him and doing... Shut up, Reed. So the Seeker is apparently looking for these guys now. Now, the Seeker, I'm going to wind up having to do an explained in a minute for him also, even though we just don't know enough about him, right? But I'll do the best I can. The Seeker is this guy who's never shown any inhuman powers, but he is one of the members of the Inhumans, and he's a guard, and he's supposed to go out and look for the Inhumans. Now, he actually winds up finding Triton, because Triton goes and he gets into it with Mr. Fantastic. Fantastic punches him in the wrong way in his really weak moisture outfit that he made. The seal breaks and the water comes out. Go check out Triton explained in a minute. He can't breathe air. He only breathes water. So he's got seconds to get back into the sea. So he jumps off the pier, I guess into the New York harbor or something like that. I don't know. God bless him back in the day. Back in those days, jumping in the harbor. Anyway, he winds up getting captured by the Seeker and his retinue. So he gets taken away. Big battle. Big battle. The Seeker shows how what he usually does. He's got this universal control rod, and he's got different attachments that he could put on it. So it's basically a power source. He can either shoot energy blasts with it, or he could put devices on it. And he makes a kind of like a pogo stick that he can climb on and fly with. It looks similar to it looks like pre-designs for what Orion would eventually do when Jack Kirby got sick of Marvel and went over to DC and realized that even though he's getting paid a little more, he's still got the exact same, garbage treatment over there. Actually, it's really worse because, whatever. I'm just going to throw this out there. Jack did eventually come back to Marvel because even though he was very resentful against a lot of people, and he took most of that resentment out on Stan Lee was not in charge of Marvel. He had a position of authority, but he wasn't in charge of Marvel at the time. That's Archie Goodwin, you know what I'm saying? Who, yes, what do you call it? He's the nephew of Archie. Stan was, but it still doesn't mean he had all the power in the world. He was still told what to do. He's still told to do all these different things and whatnot. So he wasn't actually in charge. Jack did think that he was, though, and he said, you're not advocating for me. So, that's not cool. So he went over to DC, and Stan was a friend to Jack, even though, they would take little jabs at each other once in a while. Well, Stan would really take jabs. He's very passive-aggressive. Has always been. But, yeah, Jack is more of the I will punch you in the face kind of guy. So anyway, at one point they wound up when Jack went over to DC, he realized that it's the exact same treatment, and now he doesn't have anybody to blame for it. So even though he's getting a little bit more money for what he's doing, he's like, it's not worth it. At least when we go back to Marvel, where all my creations are still at. So he gave him the New Gods and a couple other characters like that. Just meh. And then he came back over to Marvel. And by this time, Stan Lee was just getting out of doing what he was doing and moving over to California and all that stuff. So now it was a lot harder for Jack, and he literally just had to grumble and deal with it and just make his money, So yeah, there's that. Anyway, so you could clearly see all these old designs that he was eventually going to bring over to DC, including the Seeker's little pogo stick flight contraption. So they eventually wind up sneaking into the Inhumans facility. What they call it the Hidden Refuge at the time. And the Inhumans, the Seeker winds up explaining that they were a parallel race that grew up on the Earth also. Okay, now this is not the Inhuman story. I will have an Inhumans explained in a minute, probably in a week and a half. I'm probably going to do the continuation to this story also, which actually appeared in the comics of Thor, in the pages of Thor, way back in the day. Fantastic Four and Thor explained everything in the Marvel comics at the time. Nobody else really did that stuff. That was these two comics. Anyway, that means the greater history of the Marvel comics at the time. So anyway, what happened was, sorry, I got Adam Warlock in my head right now because the exact same thing happened with Adam Warlock. Appeared in Fantastic Four, got explained a lot in Thor. Anyway, so apparently back during prehistoric times, just like there were humans, there were also Inhumans. Yes, they're saying that humans existed during the time of dinosaurs. These guys are not scientists, okay? They had an interest in science and especially science fiction, specifically Jack Kirby. But they weren't scientists, all right? No, there were no humans during the time of dinosaurs. So anyway, it is fun, though, because you get to see Inhumans with their radically advanced technology, still greater than anything that we have to this day. and they're fighting against dinosaurs, like laser beams, shooting at, pew pew, shooting at dinosaurs. Like it's hysterical. But they've got this place called the Hidden Refuge. It wasn't even called Adeline at the time. It was, but in retrospect, it was called Adeline. Right now, it's just called the Hidden Refuge. And the Inhuman royal family return to the Hidden Refuge, and Maximus is the king at this point. So Maximus, who is the brother, he will be my next explained in a minute. I'll explain him on Tuesday. He shows up. He's there. He's got the crown on. And apparently, whoever's wearing the crown is the king, and that's like literally. It's like going to Burger King and doing that coup de grace game. It explains all inside the actual fake crown that you can get, the paper crown. Anyway, so Maximus is the king, and he actually summons the Alpha Primitives. This is their first appearance to come out and attack the Inhumans. They put a good quick beating on them, and then he summons them. He's like, Alpha Primitives, go! And he's like, oh, sorry guys, I didn't realize that. I don't know how they escaped. I have no idea how they escaped. We just saw you give the freaking command. Like, how stupid do you think we are? Thing is, he's got his mind control ability. All right, they don't explain they just say that he's a genius. You know what I'm saying? But they don't even call him Maximus the Mad at the time. It's Maximus the Magnificent. You know what I'm saying? So they're like, this is where they show that they're really doing this as they go. They're playing it by ear. And Jack Kirby was a very solitary guy working in his basement all the time. He would make the story. He would do his notes. But Stan wouldn't always go by those notes. So, yeah. They didn't always know what they were doing with this. They were doing it a lot play by ear or play by issue. So it's implied, and here's a really, like, the best example. It's implied that Black Bolt lost his voice in an accident that they're insinuating it's implied that Maximus caused the accident. Because the other humans are like, you're still going to go by that stupid story that he lost his voice in an accident. Eventually, we would learn the truth of it. I will get into all that stuff later when I'm talking about Black Bolt specifically. But for right now, it suggested that Maximus caused him to lose his voice, and that's not the way that the actual origin goes. So here, I just have to go into, I just feel the need to, because every time I talk about the Fantastic Four, I got to put in something about how Reed is just an absolute dick. Like, just every single time he shows he's just such a jerk. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always he's so handsome, and that's the reason why people listen to him. That's the reason why people do whatever. You know what I'm saying? He tried taking over leadership of the Avengers from Captain America. I'm sorry. On your first day of the job, really? Really? So, yeah, like, he's just something wrong with him. But on top of that, he just got married 2 issues ago to Susan Storm. So now she's Susan Richards. Just got married to her. And he's still talking to her the same way that he always talks to her. At this point, he actually, I verbatim, she's trying to get his attention, okay, because she did her hair when they were on their way to the Hidden Refuge. She did her hair and she wanted him to notice, but nobody's noticing. So she turns invisible and goes and sits on a rock outside where the ship had landed. And she's only disappeared for a couple of seconds. You know what I'm saying? And they're just like, Sue, oh my God, where are you? Sue, Sue. And like, dude, what do you get? Like, they just got off the freaking ship. Like, calm down for a minute, you know? So she turns visible. She's like, calm down, boys. I just wanted to draw your attention so that you'd be paying attention to me so you could see how I just did my hair. So it's ridiculous, right? It's silly. It's all that stuff. But here's the thing. Reed goes and says, of all the scatterbrained, addle-pated, empty-headed stunts, like he's actually screaming at her, exclamation points and everything. He's screaming at her and calling her these derogatory names. Like, what's the matter with you, dude? This is your wife. Mind you, the Human Torch, her younger brother, is right there. Forget about Ben, okay? Ben should have said something to begin with, but like, the younger brother's right there. That's how like unrealistic sometimes these were actually written. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, come on, man. Come on. But anyway, and then like a moment later, she's like, okay, excuse me, I didn't know it was, that you were going to freak out like that. I just wanted you to look at my hair. He doesn't stop. He screams at her and says, you're coming with me, young lady. Grabs her by the wrist, drags her down the hill, and starts, yelling at her like, you could have put us all in danger. We don't know what kind of danger. It's like, okay, I didn't know it was that bad. Okay, come on. And like, wow, this is abuse. This is the very definition of abuse. Okay, not just by our standards today, even back then. That's abuse. All right, like, wow, that was just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, just not cool. Like, this is the kind of stuff that Reed does, yet somehow he's considered awesome. He's written as being so awesome. And the main reason why this stuff bothers me is because literally, like, technically two, but one time in the main Earth 616 universe, Henry Pym freaked out, and he was drawn a little bit the wrong way, and he backhands Janet Van Dyne, and, you know, his wife, and just, like, all of a sudden he's a spousal abuser. It's like, listen, it was bad. It was really bad. And they went with it. They rolled with it. And just, it was really well done. The way that they explained all that stuff later and drove him a little bit insane. It showed that he had mental illness and all that stuff. And he never dealt with it. And now he's Ultron. No, real talk. But they never dealt with the fact that Reed has been like this for well past 100 issues. You know what I'm saying? He's, wow. So anyway, these guys going to get into it, like Reed and the rest of Fantastic Four, the FF, they go and they meet up with the Inhumans. At one point, Maximus is standing there, is like, you know, I'm in charge and I'm the boss and blah, 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 and oh crap, where are my guards? Oh no, Gorgon and Karnak, check his explained in a minute, also, they're blocking the door. Oh no, so my guards can't even get in. So he's like, and then Black Bolt, like, he comes to his senses, and he's like, and he reaches out and he grabs the helmet off him, and he puts it on the crown. Now all of a sudden he's the king. That's it. That's all it took. That's all it took. So now he's the king. Come on, man. Come on. Anyway, excuse me. So they get to that point where the Fantastic Four is there, and they're arguing like, okay, listen, no human is ever supposed to come here into the hidden refuge. You're not supposed to be here. Bottom line, you can't be here. So Black Bolt, he doesn't say it, obviously, but Medusa translates for him. And by this point, she's starting to realize that she is supposed to be the Queen of the Inhumans, because Maximus is saying, I'm going to marry you. And Gorgon says, whoa, if I'd have known, like, I was told to come and get you, but if I'd have known that this was the case, I never would have came and gotten you. I would have hidden you further. I didn't know he was going to try and marry you, because I know that your heart really belongs to Black Bolt. You know what I'm saying? So, and check out her explained in a minute. Released same day as this. You know, so she's in love with Black Bolt. So she's meant to be, she was, even in recent comics, they're showing that she was always meant to be married to whoever was the king, for the most part, whether it's Maximus or his brother Black Bolt. So they both wanted to be with her, but she didn't want to be with Maximus. But how can you refuse a king, you know? So they'll get into the idea that they never actually got into the idea that she lost her memory at this point. They never really got into it. But so, you know, so instead it's just the idea that she was trying to escape from him. Later on in the pages of Thor, you'll see that that's when it was realized that she actually wound up getting amnesia when she crashed. So again, I'll get into that later. So she's just like, you know, dude, what the frig? So she starts translating for, because she knows his body language. They made a language with each other that when Black Bolt moves in a certain way, she'll understand what he's trying to say. Anyway, so she starts translating, saying, listen, Fantastic Four, if you leave now and promise to never come back and never speak of this, my Lord Black Bolt is willing to allow you to live. So Reed starts yelling, you can't keep on hiding, you know, yourselves from the humans forever. You have to eventually come in, and you might as well be now. You have to come and join with us. And this is one of those things that kind of bothers me a little bit, because as smart as Reed is supposed to be, I'm sorry, do you ever read the X-Men comic books? Yeah. I bet the X-Men wish that they could just hide and never have to come out, right? Well, the Inhumans chose to hide. What are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? Anyway, they're just not nearly as large in number as humans. So, come on, man. Anyway, Black Bolt, Maximus isn't that worried about everything, because when push comes to shove, mind you, this is all in issue number 47 from this point on. Maximus knows that he's got the Atamo gun. The Atmo gun is actually supposed to just make vibrations, much like what Gorgon would make, but all over the world, and it's supposed to kill all the humans. Well, it doesn't actually kill the humans, so they're not as weak as they expected. as he at least expected, Maximus expected that the humans were. Granted, humans are ridiculously strong, even before they undergo teragenesis, even if they never undergo teragenesis. They're all physically more powerful than Captain America. Not joking. Not joking. All right? But they do have a problem with Earth's pollutants, you know, because what are you going to do? It's pollutants. It's yuck. So anyway, you know, meaning they're garbage pollutants. Anyway, so Reed is yelling at him. It's just like, listen, eventually we will get together, and it will be under Master Black Bolt that they do this. But for right now, yeah, no, we're not going to do that, and you've got no rights here. So leave, just leave. Black Bolt is, Maximus is put away. He is taken away and whatnot, but not before he drops this dome over top of the city to try and further keep them hidden. Now, Susan Richards' the Invisible Girl's force field blocks it just for a little while so they can escape. Once they do escape, Human Torch is destroyed. He's like, no, Crystal! He starts firing his blasts at the wall, but it's not even doing a bit of damage. Now, later on, they will escape, and it is when Black Bolt reveals that his voice will destroy cities. But that's much later. That's in future pages, not for here. We're going to stop at this issue. That's the first half of this issue. The second half of this issue is devoted to, like, immediately afterwards. Here comes the Silver Surfer, and the Skrulls are like, you know, oh crap, cloaking devices, and yeah, and then there's the 3-part up until issue 50, the 3-part Galactus trilogy, which is considered the best that the Fantastic Four has to offer. So the Inhumans did lead into the Fantastic Four meeting with Galactus and the Silver Surfer. And guys, that's all I've got. That's the story. That is the first appearance of the Inhumans, starting with Medusa, and then adding Gorgon, and then just boom, here's all of the Royal Inhuman family, a couple of other Inhumans, the Seeker, including Black Bolt, part of the Royal Inhuman family, but the bad guy, also the Alpha Primitives. So, yeah, good stuff. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.